All righty. And we are live with what may be our earliest live stream
Good
of all time
morning.
here at Davil. Good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning. You can all listen to my rooster outside. Doug was just commenting on the fact that he was going off. So,
So listen, that's the Easter egg for this one. But we are here with some, I guess, serious news, some really big
sad
news,
news.
sad news. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think we really need to touch on as we get through this. Is first what the news is that NaNoWriMo announced last night, or Kilby from NaNoWriMo, the CEO or executive director, announced that Nano, as we know it, will no longer exist. The events that they run will not be a thing, especially come November, National Novel Writing Month. The NaNoWriMo will not be a facilitated event put on by the organization, the nonprofit NaNoWriMo. And that's a huge deal, right? That's, as you said, Abby, that's a sad thing for a
Mhm.
lot of people because so many people look forward to this. I know in in the last year or so, there have been some things that may have left a poor taste in people's mouths when it came to NaNoWriMo, and I think there's been some stumbling that
Mhm.
Nano has done. But there are still so many people who got their start in Nano. I saw so many comments saying, Nano is what kicked me into self-publishing my first novel or gave me the courage to write something that I submitted to agents. We know there are authors out there, like best-selling authors, who started with NaNoWriMo. So it's a staple
Yeah,
in the online writing community.
even though I know I say it all the time, I've never officially done Nano. Nano was actually how I started writing because my best friend started a book during NaNoWriMo, and she would send it to me a few pages at a time. And the thought had never really occurred to me, sit down and write a book
Yep.
until she joined Nano. And that was what sort of put it on my radar.
Yeah.
So, in a roundabout way, I feel like I have Nano to thank for being a writer.
Yeah. And I
So,
think I think a lot of people would be in the same boat.
mhm.
And you were saying just before we started this, Abby, that Nano's like Kleenex. Right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah. Kleenex
you
did to tissues what Xerox did to photocopiers. I mean, if you hand somebody a photocopy and say, here, or, can you Xerox this? We all know what that means. And
Mhm.
so I think that's exactly what Nano has done for November in the writing community is I don't think a November is going to pass without somebody calling it NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
And the energy that I think will continue to live on in the community because of that is such a feat that needs to be admired. I
Mhm.
mean, how many people have pulled off something like launching a national month of anything,
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
really
And especially when it comes to writing and the writing community, there's nothing as big as
nope.
that, which is why this is such a almost humbling event. And if you haven't seen it, we have in the description down below a link to uh, Kilby's update. It's long and it's got a lot of technical information in it, but it does explain, what's happening and why this is happening. And then David just pointed out here something that I was about to touch on. I'm glad you brought it up. It's such a shame because I joined Dabble because of NaNoWriMo, and there are so many people in our community and at our live events and just who became dabblers because of Nano.
Mhm.
Since Dabble was a thing, since Jacob, our CEO, our founder, started it, he has sponsored Dabble or sponsored NaNoWriMo every year, and especially this last year when we were sort of the sponsor of the month for NaNoWriMo, we got so many new friends from that now join all of our events and have joined our community and participate regularly, and they're just familiar faces and names that we see every time we hit that go live button.
Mhm.
So we are, very, very grateful for that. We're very grateful for the people that joined us from there. And, personally, and I speak for the rest of the Dabble team, very grateful that that influx of people really gave us the push to hire you, Abby, to bring on a community manager to
That's two
be
things I need to thank Nano for.
so like it's been a big deal. And again, I think there are some people who were disenfranchised, let's say, with Nano this past year especially, but I think that the net positive that it's brought to the writing community is hard to match, right? And that that brings me to kind of the gist of this conversation that you and I are having. And just for anyone with us now or watching this after, this is kind of just a live stream to discuss what happened. We got the news the same time everyone else did. So there will be people who are grieving this, because there are people who are looking forward to Nano every year and who has become such an intrinsic part of their writing journey and their writing process, that it's okay if you're grieving this, if you're feeling sad about it, if you're worried about what that's going to mean for your writing. But really, we want to focus on the community aspect of NaNoWriMo and like how important that is. So Abby, you're the community manager
Yes.
at the Storycraft Cafe, or
Hello.
as well, why, like, you tell me and tell everyone else here why community is so important to authors and writers.
I think there are so many of us who feel like writing is a super lonely pursuit. Unless you happen to have a co-writer, it's you get up, you sit down at your computer, and it's just you and your own brain, and you are inside your head. And the part that makes that the hardest, I don't know if you felt this, Doug, but I mean, I certainly felt this. I married a physicist. I did not marry someone who went into a creative field. And so I would sit down and I would want to talk about what I was doing. And it's very difficult to follow a writer when they start talking about their story or the process. Or, I mean, the process is so messy. And a lot of people, unless you do it, you don't understand it. And sometimes I think that can just lead to isolation. And the great thing about NaNoWriMo was every November, I mean, the energy, everybody came together. We were all doing it at the same time. And it felt like, I mean, it was a global community, you know. So now, there are a lot of writing communities out there, a lot of established writing communities that you can join. And, we have one of them, and we try and recreate some of that energy, even if it's on a much smaller scale than a global scale, although we do have community members from all over the world. But we try and recreate a lot of that energy every week. We do writing sprints 3 times a week, which is a great way to feel like you aren't writing in isolation, is come write with a group of people. We have our office hours. I've got an Ask Me Anything coming up with an agent that's hopefully next month. So we bring in experts from the writing community to talk, to answer questions, and to just make you feel like you aren't out there by yourself behind your computer in your own brain.
Yeah. As Arariel pointed out here, I married an HR professional who doesn't understand what an awkward comma is. Because when I cry about my plot holes, he's like, "It'll be fine." Then went on to say, "No, it won't." And it's extra. It can be extra isolating for authors too, because a lot of us don't plan on being an author, or we don't go to school for being an author. It's something that we pursue in our part-time. It's something we're passionate about. It's something we wake up one day and it's like, hey, I have this story idea, let's start writing it, or let's start learning about it. And so it's really on the person to find their own community, right? Whereas if you go to, like, I went to school for marketing, and before that I went to school for political science, and so I was physically surrounded by people who shared that interest and were going through the same thing.
Well, I mean, even, my degree is in fine arts. And if you think about it, painters, potters, even weavers, my undergraduate degree was in weaving. You have the studios where people come together and they make their work. And you don't have studios for writers. I mean, I've thought about starting one here, but I don't know how well that would go over. So you don't have those physical places to gather, which actually makes the internet a beautiful thing, because it can bring us together no matter where we are, where we're located. Actually, I see Miss Isabel in the comments right now, and I know she's in China. So
yeah, it's a great meeting place for us all. I mean, I keep getting ads for like writing retreats in castles. Like, if I could, I would, right? But for those of us who can't go to a castle for a week to write, which I think is the majority of us, the internet is the place where we find our community, and Nano excelled at that. I also want to point out that when it comes to community, there are in-person things that you can find.
Mhm.
Your library might have a group. You might have a local writing group that you can meet up with. There might be a nonprofit near you that's focused on arts. So if you can get out and connect with some of those folks, I know it's a little more daunting to connect with people in real life, especially when you're early in your
You're
writing career.
introverted.
Yeah, you're introverted and you're like, oh yeah, here's my writing, here's the thing I'm really passionate about, and I want you to take a look at it and tell me everything I did wrong. Like that hurts.
You have to come out from behind your computer screen to
Yeah.
do it. I mean, that's
Is it, but it's worth it. But that brings me to something that I want to mention, is that if you watch the video from Kilby about NaNoWriMo, she says that she makes a point that nonprofits, and especially arts nonprofits, are closing their doors all over the place. I'm from Canada, you're from the United States. This is not a country by country thing. This is an international
yeah.
phenomenon where these nonprofits are losing their funding and losing a lot of support. And so the programming that they have available is also disappearing,
Yep.
which is a real shame.
It
And I,
is a shame.
yeah,
And the fact that they have to rely on so much fundraising too. That's I don't know if you've ever been a part of a fundraiser, but it is exhausting. I mean, you
yes,
came from a nonprofit. I came from a nonprofit before this. I was in a fine arts nonprofit, and we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of funding like that.
yeah,
And then you have to struggle to make up for it. And
yeah.
sometimes it's impossible.
Yeah,
So
and I think a lot of people, and what I'm about to say isn't meant to shame anyone, but I think a lot of people didn't even realize Nano was a nonprofit. We just
mhm,
viewed it as this event that
yeah.
happens, right?
Like
And
a
so,
club.
like a club, right? Like a club,
Yeah.
and then once a year we do this really cool thing together. And so like there's no blame to be placed for not donating to something you didn't realize was a nonprofit, but I think use this as kind of a moment to realize nonprofits and arts nonprofits specifically are suffering,
Mhm,
and the local nonprofit that provides the programming that your community benefits from, or one that provides programming that your online community benefits from, they need your support too. And if you
mhm,
can't give to a nonprofit monetarily, then you might be able to, volunteer or spread the message about what they do, share their posts on social, talk to
mhm.
your writing friends about what they do, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of ways to support arts nonprofits, and I think now, to use a term that I hated from COVID, now more than ever, it's a time to support those
But
kinds of institutions.
what a great idea too. And I guess I'd never really thought about that, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, oh, that is so true. If you can't do anything else, sharing a post on
Hmm.
social doesn't take a lot of time, takes no money. You hit a button, but oftentimes I can say when I was working on the social media for the not-for-profit that I worked in, um, you might only have a couple views on something. You might only have a couple of likes on something, and it doesn't end up feeding the algorithm to get it in front of more people's faces. And so, just that simple click, sometimes you would be surprised by how much that actually helps and how much it's appreciated by a small nonprofit.
Yeah.
So, that's a great idea, Doug.
Yeah, and especially because your local library or your local nonprofit,
Mm,
they from my own experience working with the charity, they're already running on a shoestring budget,
yep.
right? So they don't have money for advertising. Bigger charities will, and bigger nonprofits will. And I'm not saying you shouldn't share them. If you have a cause that's important to you, share
Oh,
that
yeah.
cause, of course. But your smaller ones, the arts-based ones, your local ones, they do not have the money to advertise like bigger organizations, no matter how well known you think they are.
Mhm.
um, it's tough for them. So
Yeah.
little call to action for you all in the wake of this.
A
But
CTA.
yeah, CTA. Now we don't want to make this video too long, and we can't go into too much detail about what we're going to say next. But one thing that I do want to point out is that a lot of people that joined us for NaNoWriMo were actually joining us for the second half of our 60-day novel challenge. A challenge that we started in October. We went through the whole planning, character development, goal setting, thinking about theme, and then we wrote the 50,000 words in November. We were already planning on doing that again this year, kind of in conjunction with NaNoWriMo, because we had such a great time last year doing it and we made so many new friends. Now with this announcement, there's going to be this big hole in the online writing community, and there's going to be supports that previously existed for authors that won't be there this year, and honestly weren't there last year either. And so we NaNoWriMo will continue to exist kind of in spirit. Like you said, it is the Kleenex or the Xerox of Novembers in the writing community. It existed before it was a nonprofit. It will exist for many years for a lot of people as their own personal challenge. But we, behind the scenes, are going to be working on making a bigger and better 60-day novel challenge than what we had last year, to help fill the gaps and to help make sure, like everything else we do on this channel and in the cafe and on W, give you the support you need, give you the motivation you need, and give you the accountability that you need to write the story that you want to write. So we can't go much further into it than that, because we still need to iron out all the details and whatnot, but know that there is not just a vacuum that will exist in November. And if you're here with us now, watching this later, what have you, we're going to have something in place so that you can get those words written.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any ideas that they want to give us, feel free to stop by the W campus, right? Formerly Storycraft Cafe. And let us know, tag us in a post. And, we're really open to taking the community in the direction that our members want it to go. And so we're open to anything.
Yeah. And that's a big thing to understand too, because even though Dabble, we're a for-profit company, we are a private company, right? But everything we do is for y'all watching this. So please let us know what you want. Let us know what would benefit you in a challenge. You can go back and watch the videos from last year to see kind of how we frameworked it and what you would like or wouldn't like to see again. But Isabel pointed out here, I feel both hopeful and also incredibly sad. And I think that is a perfectly valid and understandable way to be feeling, because there's a lot of opportunity that comes from this. And I think we're going to rise up to help fill that gap, and other groups and people and, personalities on YouTube and writing coaches and writers, they're all going to rise up and help fill that gap. So a staple of the writing community is leaving, but I think we're going to get a lot of really cool stuff in its place.
Well, and can I just say this, like as a place to end, what big shoes they've left that it takes an entire community of people to fill them. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
They did great.
Yeah, they did. So, as a sad moment, a hopeful moment, big thanks to NaNoWriMo and everyone who was running that, and everyone who kind of tread this path so that so many authors could get their start and could write their stories. But yeah, we're looking forward to some silver linings here and seeing what we can do.
Absolutely. So thanks everybody for coming along on this ride with us.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Showing up early on a Tuesday morning.
Our earliest live stream ever. Thank you for joining us.
Hi,
and again, if you have any ideas, let us know in the community. Let us know in the comments here. And we'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye.